which happens to fit with the project that this week we're learning the Siches of Rabbi, both Siches in Chelik Yudal. We're going to learn the first Siche. I do have to mention that this Siche is pretty long, so it might even take longer than some other times. We can't learn many Ha'oras because it's going to take up much time, but it's going to be a little longer than usual. Okay, we'll start with the Siche. The background of the posik is the Torah says in this week's parsha that when you go to Eretz Yisrael, even we're in the Midbar, when you go into Eretz Yisrael, you're going to be able to eat what we call basar taiva. This is the way Rashi learns the pshat. When the Eden were in the Midbar, they were not allowed to eat meat. If a person wanted to eat meat, the only way you could do it is by bringing a korban. You have to go to the Yomeir, to the Mishkan, bring a korban, then you get the meat to eat from the korban. But stam, you call it chuln, regular meat to eat, that they were not allowed. So the pasuk says, now when you're going to Eretz Yisrael, you're going to be able to eat regular meat. You'll be able to shecht and eat meat if you want. But then the pasuk says, rak chazak, but be strong, levilti achel adam, not to eat the blood. Adam hu nefesh, because the blood is the nefesh, so you can't eat the nefesh. And therefore the Torah says you should be strong, not to eat blood. So on that pasuk, Maitek Rashi Tchilas pasuk, Rashi quotes in the Dibur HaMaschal, in the heading of the Rashi, he quotes the beginning of the pasuk. He quotes the words rak chazak levilti achel adam. Just these words. But you shall be strong, not to eat the blood. Mefarash Rashi explains like this: Mimasha nemer chazak, from the fact that the Torah says be strong, atalomed, you could learn out. Shall you shtufim bedam lochle, that the Eden were very much absorbed, very much involved in eating blood. The ficha chutzrach leimer chazak. That's what you have to say. Be strong. In other words, he's telling us that in order not to eat blood, you have to be strong because they were so much immersed in eating blood. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. But Shimon ben Azai says, no. Leib the Pasuk didn't come for that. It comes to warn you and teach you how strong you have to be when you do the mitzvahs. In other words, he holds away. It seems a simple pshat that it's not so. Like Rabbi Yehuda says that they were very much involved in eating blood. No, they weren't. So why did the Torah say chazak? To teach you the chalal by mitzvahs, how strong you have to say. And how did the Torah teach it us? The Torah wrote the word chazak by blood. So im adam shukali shomerman. If blood, which is very easy to be careful not to eat blood, because sheino the misabele, a person doesn't have taiva, doesn't have a desire to eat blood anyway. So it's very easy to stay away from it. Nevertheless, the Torah has to give you strength. In the morning, you're telling you how strong you have to do it. So certainly for all other mitzvahs. So really what the Rabbi Shimon Nazai says, the Torah, it says the word chazak to teach you, not for the dam, that by all mitzvahs you have to be strong. And he picks a mitzvah which is very light and no one cares about it anyway, no one would do it anyway. So don't really have to tell you anything to be strong. But he's telling you, even here should be strong to teach you that by other mitzvahs you have to be strong. So the Rebbe says like this, the Pasha is moving Akushish because of Sherash and Nochis Latar. The Pashtas, we understand what bothered Rashi. Because the Seder B'chal Rashi, when Rashi explains something, it's always because there's some problem. If the Pasuk has no problem, the Pasuk is understood clearly, Rashi will not comment anything. When Rashi comments, there is a kasha. Now Rashi didn't say what the kasha is. Usually doesn't. But it's understood here. But who the kasha is? Mashnemer Chazak. The kasha is, why does the Torah use here by not eating blood? Chazak. We don't find a losha like that by all other mitzvahs. Actually, in our the Rebbe brings a Ramban that we do find a losha chazak, but that's when the Torah says generally by mitzvahs. A lot of times it says be strong to do the mitzvahs, but not by an individual mitzvah. So why did the Torah here by the Isra Adam bring this loshan, say this loshan chazak? Azem maybe adrosha shebesifri kan. That's Rashi brings what the Sifri darshans here. This explains why it says the Loshan Chazak by the blood. So according to the first shot of Rabbi Yehuda is because they were very much involved in eating blood. So you had to tell them, be strong. You had to work hard to get away from it. And according to Rabbi Shimon Nazai, it is to tell you how strong you have to be by other mitzvahs. You have to understand like this. Number one, Duber Kamapom, the Rebbe says, I said many times, Rasha maybe based Perushim, where Rasha brings two pshatim, because each one has something hard in understanding the pasuk. Which will be answered at the second one. There is a kash in the pasuk. You have one pshat, but that pshat has a problem. So Rashi brings the second pshat, which doesn't have that problem. But the second shot has a different problem. That's why Rashi kept the first shot. So both together take care of the problem. Usually the first one is the one that's closer to the simple shot of the pasuk. That's sort of weird. That's what, so now we have to understand. Why does Rashi have to bring both the Roshas? Both Pirushim. What's wrong? What's shver in the first shot that the second shot doesn't have that problem? So that's why he brings the second shot. What's missing in the second shot that Rashi has to bring the first shot? That's one shot. Another shot. Base. The machlekes the way Rashi brings between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon ben Azai is hard to understand. Certainly up to pshat. Why? It's an argument in the fact. It's an argument in the facts, and it's from one extreme to another. Let Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, why does it have to say chazak? Because they were so much involved in eating blood. That means at that time, when the Torah said, when Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Eden Chazak, don't eat the blood, at that time they were very much involved. They were used to it and very much involved in eating blood. That's why he said, I know it's hard for you, but strengthen yourself and don't eat blood. Well, Rabbi Shimon ben Azai, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Azai, is the opposite. For blood itself, you don't need chizuk at all. Rabbi Shimon ben Azai says, it's a mitzvah that's very easy to be careful. A person doesn't have any taiva to it, there's no desire. And according to Shimon ben Azai, at the time when Moshe Rabbeinu said this commandment, that's how it was. That's why at that time he told him, be strong, not eat the blood. But the Rebbe is trying to say with these words, he explains in the order 4. The Chura, you could have said, maybe it's not a machlekes, maybe the Shimon ben Azai is made it, at that time they were involved in blood. But when he says that the Torah tells you be strong, even to teach you that it's an easy mitzvah, so to teach you by all mitzvahs, maybe he meant in the future. In the future, this will be an easy mitzvah, so it teaches you in the future. But who says that Shimon ben Azai holds it at that time it was like that? So the Rebbe says, first of all, he says the Loshen, Kali Shomer, Inodem Isabes, the Loshen Havid, he told him it's easy to be careful, means now it is. And the second thing is the Loshen, that the Posik came not for blood, but just to teach you a Kal V'Chaimer from blood is mashma that that's always like that. Later and then. So the bottom line is, according to Shimon ben Azai, the Yidden were not involved in blood, which is the opposite of what Rabbi Yehuda says, which is a strange thing to say that there's a machlekes in Metzias. It's not so poshet to understand. Normally, when we know that it can be a machlekes in a fact, is only by a fact that you could verify. How can you be a machlekes? Go find out. But a fact that happened 3,500 years ago, or that time 2,000 years ago, how could you verify? So why can't there be a Malachis and Metzias? But nevertheless, in Derech HaPshat, certainly Rebbe in other Sichas has the same thing, that he doesn't like to say there's a Machlekes and Metzias, even though we find in Gemara Machlekes and Metzias from times early. But upon him, Derech HaPshat for sure, it's hard to say that they pushed it, arguing so far extreme. One says that they were very much involved, and one says it's the easiest thing to be careful with. Complete opposite. Third thing is, the Divrei Shimon ben Azai, in the words of Shimon ben Azai, Shebepirish Rashi, it's in Rashi, Rashi uses the lotion by the Shimon ben Azai. He says that blood is Eino de Misavele. It's something that no one has, and a person doesn't have any desire. The Leib, but it doesn't say Eino de Mishotov. It doesn't say a person is not heavily involved. Al derech livde Rabbi Yehuda shoyishtufim bedam. Like Rabbi Yehuda says that they were shotov, they were involved. The Chura would have made more sense if Shimon ben Azai would say, Rashi would say in the name of Shimon ben Azai, that Yehuda says that they were very much involved in blood, and Shimon ben Azai says they weren't. But he says, a different lotion, Eidan Misavev, Eidan Mishotov, must be saying something different, something special, which we will see. And the fourth child is, the comment of La Posik of Mayitav Loch came in. Later on, the Posik says that don't eat the blood, etc. So the Eibishter will be good to you and do good to you. Pirish Rashi. So Rashi said, what does that mean? This teaches you the schar of mitzvahs. That if blood, which a person anyway is disgusting with eating blood, the Torah says, I'll be good to you for keeping the mitzvah, so certainly by other things. But what lashon does Rashi use? Blood is something that a person is disgusted with. And nevertheless, there for doing it, which is very easy to do, but the Rashi is a loshon kotze. The loshon is a mashma shekenu b'chol zman. From here, mashma blood is something a person is disgusting to drink blood, to eat blood. Nafshe shalodim kotzam dam. L'chura v'leikamar. It doesn't fit, not according to Rabbi Yehuda and not according to Reb Shimon ben Azai. Why? The Rabbi Yehuda hoishtufim bedam. According to Rabbi Yehuda, certainly it's not. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he holds that they were involved in blood. So you can't say that there was kotzam mehem. Heipach nafshe kotzam mena, the opposite of nafshe kotzam. So certainly, and gamle Reb Shimon ben Azai, even according to Reb Shimon ben Azai, doesn't fit. Because Reb Shimon ben Azai only says, ein odam is avalei. People don't care for it. People don't desire it. Avalei shenafshe shloim kotzam mena. He doesn't say that something that people are disgusting with. So that inyan doesn't fit to either. So again, the Pella. Rashi writes something 2 psukim later, and it's contradicting, so to speak, both pshatim that he said before. The 5th kasha. I said many times, Rashi Bechlal doesn't bring who said it, because most of the things Rashi brings is from Midrashim, from Chazal, from Gemara, different places. But Rashi doesn't say a name. There are places, but much less than he does. So obviously, Rashi is not the system of Rashi. The Seder of Rashi is not to bring it b'shem emrei. If Rashi would follow this concept that you have to write everything in the name of the Seder, he would say it every time. The fact that most of the times he doesn't assume it, that doesn't bother him. Okay, so if that doesn't bother him, why sometimes does he bring? So the Rebbe has learned that by bringing it, it adds something to the pshat. Al kaponim l'talmud m'mulach. So if it's something that everybody needs to understand, then Rashi would not just be marames it. Rashi would explain it. Rashi explains everything that the Talmud can understand. But there are certain things which Rebbe is not a kasha, but a smarter Talmud will have a kasha. So Rashi wants to answer that too. He answers it by bringing the name. So we have to understand. By the way, just came to my mind. You see that the way the Rebbe writes it, Tzorech Lahavin, Vov Tzadik Lamed Hey Beis. Usually in the Memorim, it's Tzorech Lahavin Tzadik Lamed. So I remember when writing the Sichas, the Rebbe, like so to speak, taught us that you should write out Tzorech Lahavin, because Tzadik Lamed could mean Tzorech Leimer, Tzorech Liyas, all kinds of things. To make sure it's Tzorech Lahavin, so he would write it like this. Anyway, so Rashi said, so the Rebbe said that Tzorech Lahavin, you have to understand, Ma Neise B'Pirush Kan, what do we gain here? What is this added to the pshat of the pasuk where Rashi explains by knowing that this was said by the Rebbe Shimon? Right? Another thing, the same opinion Reb Shimon ben Azai Sifri is also brought name of Reb Gamliel. So there are 2 people that said the same pshat. Why does it? Why he brings a name when it's really not only him? Someone else said it also. It's say Rabbi saying to be Rabbi Gamliel also. Is Mashma here? Rashi is interested to tell Rabbi Shimon ben Azai. So Rashi has an interest to tell us that there was Rabbi Yehuda. By knowing it's Rabbi Yehuda, you could figure out this answers a certain question. And knowing it's Rabbi Shimon ben Azai answers another question. Here the Rebbe says, Rebbe is going to ask more shilas. He says like this. As we said, Rashi takes it from Sifri. Rashi changes from the Loshan of Sifri. Some things he skips what the Sifri says, and something he adds what the Sifri didn't say. And he explains what it is. Number 1, in Sifri it says in the words of Rabbi Yehuda that he said that the Yidden were shotu v'dam, were heavily involved in eating blood before Matan Torah, which means, according to the Sifri, that now, when Moshe Rabbeinu said this to them in Parshas Re'eh, which is 40 years later, they were not, and only from before. And the Sifri says that the Buddha says, since years ago you were shotu v'dam, I want to tell you chazak. But he says now they weren't, they were for Matan Torah. The Ilu Rashi might take Shtufim B'dam. Rashi doesn't say that. All Rashi says, Rabbi Yehuda says, the Yidden were Shtufim B'dam. Hareze Hashmote Shapiro Hepech HaSifri. It's not just Rashi skipped a few words. Sometimes, you quote something and you skip a few words. By skipping the words, it's the opposite shot of the Sifri. Kim Shekosov Ze Nemar Lamet Teshona Lacha Matan Torah. This pasuk was said 39 years after Matan Torah. And on that, what he was saying now, Rashi says, he was telling the people who were listening, Chazak, be strong, because they were short of Adam. So according to what Rashi says it, that the Buddha holds that they were short of Adam at that time. While the Sifri says clearly that they were short of Adam only before Matan Torah. Now, the other Rabbi, Rebbe is now saying that there would be a Maile had Rasha quoted the Sifri. It's not only a kasha, why didn't he quote the Sifri? Why did they say the opposite? You lost something. If Rasha would have quoted the Sifri, would have been something better. Why? If Rasha would explain the Pshuta Shalmikra, if Rasha would same shot, saying like it says in Sifri that Rabbi Yehuda said that when were they shot of Vidam before Matan Torah? Oh, you know what would be then? There's no machlekes in Mitzias. Then we can say very portion. When Rabbi Shimon Nazir says now they didn't care for blood, there's no contradiction to Rabbi Yehuda. The Buddha also says now they weren't. Before Matan Torah they were. Maybe Rabbi Shimon Nazir will made it. Yes, years ago, 39 years ago they were. We would have learned that when Shimon Nazir says that the person is not misaveh and doesn't have no tithe, that's going after Matan Torah, because the Yidden were already told much before not to eat blood, so they stopped. So they would have answered the Shaila from before. The Rebbe Shaila before was, it seems like if some machlekes very far apart, had Rashi quoted the Sifri, it would have answered that question. So the question is, why doesn't Rashi quote the Sifri? So this is one thing that Rashi skipped in the Sifri. But on the other hand, Rashi adds, goes into Arichas v'divrei Rabbi Yehuda. When he quotes Rabbi Yehuda, he says like this: he writes roundabout, because it says Chazak, we learn out that they were short of Bedav, and therefore they say Chazak. So Rashi teaches at least very clear. He is very short. Sifri quotes the Pasuk and says, this teaches us that they were Shtufim Bedav. And Rashi goes into, it says Chazak, and Chazak is for that, Mayrich, adds to the Sifri. Another thing is, Gimel, the Sifri is in Sifri, it says in the words of Shimon Nazai, Ma dam she'em b'chol ha'mitzvos kal memenu, hisircha kosav olav. Shimon Nazai says, Ma, the blood, where there's no, amongst all the mitzvahs, there's nothing easier than not eating blood. Nevertheless, the Torah warns you, etc., etc. But Rashi adds that according to Shimon Nazai, blood, it doesn't say just kal. He says, Eino de mesavale, a person doesn't care about, doesn't have a title to it. Must be some reason why Rashi adds this. Now, l'chura, the shaila will be a different shaila, which Rebbe is going to not address, but it seems what he's trying to say. L'chura, kasha is not only what's the reason Rashi changes. How could Rashi change? How could Rashi quote somebody when that's not what he said? How could Rashi quote Rabbi Yehuda or Shimon Nazai? Where did he get it from? Rashi saw it in the Sifri. So how could he quote him in his name, something that he didn't say? It's a shaila. So the Rebbe answers that. In some of the questions we have, maybe Rashi had this girsa in Sifri, because Rashi does sometimes have another girsa. Okay, let's say Rashi had another girsa. And he quotes that girsa. That itself needs to be understood. Why does Rashi pick the girsa that's not common, the uncommon girsa, the Leib girsa, not like the common girsa that we have. Now, how do we know our girsa is a common girsa? Because in our prints, all the prints, the Sifri says it this way, that shows, so before the print, probably most of the Kisviyat had it that way. Gambis Marash, even the time of Rashi. So you could answer that shaila, that Rashi had a different girsa. It doesn't answer the shaila. Why did he pick it? Because the shaila had the different. The fact is he had a different girsa, but still, why did he pick this girsa? Now, in order 3:12, I want to say the Rebbe says that be'emes, sometimes you could say he didn't have a different girsa. The question is, how could he quote somebody and say? Sometimes you quote somebody, you add words which explain what he meant. You could say it in his name by explaining. So that's why sometimes, so when Rasha says, Eino da misavele, he's explaining what he meant. He's mavayed divrei benazai, even though it's not his lashon. But the question is, what forced him to say it? Why is that needed to explain Shimon Nazai? So the bottom line, whichever way we're going to go, the question is, why did Rashi change from the Lashon Sifri? Now, Rabbi is at the explanation. Rashi eine meite b'divrei Yehuda. First thing Rebbe is saying, why does Rashi not bring the Lashon of the Sifri that The Buddha holds that they were shotov b'dam before Matan Torah. The mashmos, so that means that means that now not after Matan Torah, change before Matan Torah. And that would have been better, as we said before. The Rebbe says why? In a movement. If that would be something's not understood in derech hapshat. The warning not to eat blood is written in the Torah a few times. Actually, in order 13, you bring that the Gemara in Krisis says 5 times in different places. It says 7 times, but there are many times before that the Torah warned about blood. If we're going to say that this whole thing of they shot of Adam, which the Torah has to tell you chazak, is because they before Matan Torah were shot of Adam. What made them be shot of Adam? Where did they get this from? Probably they just came out of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim people drink blood, so they were shot of. That's what we're going to say. But if that's the pshat, so why doesn't the Torah say chazak? The first time the pasuk says the Eibusha told them about not eating blood. They stopped probably after Matan Torah, but if he still had to feel that he has to strengthen them because of what they did before, so as closer as it is, it's more reason to strengthen. Close to the time they were shot to B'dam. Why did they come with this chizut that you have to have a chizut to dam esht in dvorim shenemru b'seif shnasa arboim lachaseisim Mitzrayim? It said at the end of the 48th year from leaving Mitzrayim. Not only that, all the people who were Mitzrayim, who were short of B'dam and stopped, they're not alive anymore. Why doesn't it say in Vayikra the union of chazak? Because this was closer to the time short of B'dam. That's what Rashi asked one of the shaylas. Why is Rashi Mayrich? Say stam. So Rashi is Mayrich. He means like this. Rashi, when he says, not only because it says chazak is araydi v'shotu, what he's trying to say is like this. Since it says chazak here and not before, we could learn out that they were short of dam to eat it. That you can't say that now they were not. If now they were not and before they were, he would have said it before. Obviously, Rashi says, since it says here chazak, asimen that they were short of B'dam. The Dafke Rashi is medayik, not like it says in Sifri, only before Matan Torah. They have a raya in Pshute Shel Mikro that he told them chazak, asimen they were short. One of the kashas, yeah, but they were shot of the dam. Shimon Nazai holds that they didn't like dam. So there's no machlekes in mitzias. But later to say as far as of Yehuda afucham as far as of Shimon Nazai shadame misavalei. Like we said before, that it's opposite of what the Shimon Nazai says that they did not have a taiva to dam. It's possible a person not to want something, not have a taiva. But you say them as and it's even possible that the person's is disgusted with eating it or taking it. And you still could be heavily involved in eating it. It's disgusting. Why? If they study for other reasons. You can have a munah, there's something that has a special sgula, special refuah. How many times are people involved in taking medicines and things like that, which is disgusting and they can't stand it, but they're into it, full-fledged into it, because this is healthy for them. And so we find such a thing. And the Rebbe says in order 18, actually, the Chazal say, "Kol nefesh meishiv es nefesh," that anything that has nefesh in it helps you gain nefesh. So there's a svara, there is a refuah in drinking blood. So therefore, it's possible not to like it, but nevertheless to be short to because you're used to it. You see it, the Rebbe says. But they don't need madam could say by blood. According to the Yehuda, they were short of dam many years even after they left Mitzrayim. The Yehuda could admit that, like Rav Shimon says, they're not arguing. He said, I admit they didn't like it. They got nafshe kotzim amenu. The nefesh was kotzah, which by the way answers the shaila that the Rebbe has before, that Rasha says later that mad of dam nafshe shodem kotzah. So yes, it doesn't fit not to the Yehuda, not to Rav Shimon Nazai, because even according to Shimon Nazai, it's not kotzah. So the Rebbe says, no, it's fakert, the Rasha is taka kotzah. And still, the Yehuda says they were short of B'dam, even though it's kotzah, they couldn't stand it. but they were shotav because of their philosophy. They thought it was Gvaldik. And Reb Shimon Nazai says, no, they weren't shotav, but they were not Mesaveh. But and could be they were even Kotzev. And still, he says, they're not Mesaveh to Dam. They didn't want Dam. But they still maybe drank it because of whatever reason it is. So this shot answers the shaila. The kasha was, why does it say chazak, and why does it say chazak here, not earlier? Obviously, they were shota b'dam here. So Rasha answers by bringing Rabbi Yehuda that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the reason it says chazak because they were shota b'dam now, and he told them that. Now you're going to answer why do we need the second shot? This is not enough reason why dafka here it says chazak. Why not? One problem is since you're saying they were shota b'dam, which means not only before, they were shota b'dam throughout the whole time. From Mitzrayim, throughout the 39 years in the midbar, they were shota b'dam. If so, now we understand that it fits to here because they were still shota. But why didn't he say it the first time? They were still shot all these years. They were shota. Mainly should have said that there besmichas l'matan Torah, closer to matan Torah. But later, not only the end of the 40 years. Why didn't you write over there the word chazak? It fits here. See, according to Rasha, it fits here. See, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Sifri, it doesn't even fit here. That's what the Rebbe said. That's what Rasha can't learn like the Sifri. If they were not shot of Adam, why would they tell them chazak here, not before? It couldn't tell me it. So Rasha says, no, they were still shot of. That's why he said. But they still not understood. Why didn't he say it before? Now, the Chura, you would think, this slugs up the whole pshat. It's not a schwerigkeit. Slugs up the pshat. So the Rebbe says, not a 19 star. Hircha gemura ein bazeh. It's not a main kasha, major kasha. It's not a real upslug. Why? So he says, why? We find other mitzvahs that even not only some lesson, some lotion about it, but even how to do the mitzvahs, which were written earlier, and it's not told to us till Dvarim. So we find that Kiviyochel, that's the style of the Chumash, if you can use, I'm using the wrong word, but that's what Chumash is, that sometimes they write something that really could have been before and it's written later. But still, it's a Shverikite. That's one Shverikite. The second thing is the Ikir. The main question is, since they were warned about not eating blood earlier, before this 40th year, it's not, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. It's hard to understand to say that for close to 40 years, so all these warnings that the Eibusha gave these years didn't work. See, if it wouldn't be shtufim, you would say, hey, some people still drank blood. Okay, the Eibusha told them, but they say they were still short of bedam when they had warnings before so many times earlier. Shver to say. The third thing is, it's hard to say mainly, at the end of the 40 years, that all the people who went on the Mitzrayim, that's where they got this habit of drinking blood, were already dead. The children should be shot to bedam. The Eibusha warned many times. So the first ones that came out of Mitzrayim got this habit from Mitzrayim, but these were the children. 40 years later, they're still shotu. So the Rebbe brings out at 20 that the Ebenezer and the Kliyokar say, yeah, because the teva of the parents get to the father, the children, I mean. So the teva that the parents had of drinking blood got to them also. But the Rebbe says, when we say that the teva of the father goes to the child, that's only the characteristics, the midas, but not what to drink or what to eat. You don't say because the father liked this, the child will like this. The father has a good midah, a bad midah, whatever it could transfer, a good head, but not what to eat. So it's hard to say this. The shaila is also, according to Judas Pshad, the way Rasha learns, that they were shot of Adam now, hard to understand. The children should be shot of Adam when they were 40 years already away from Mitzrayim. That's why Rasha has to bring another pshat, which doesn't have these three problems. That when it says here chazak, not because they were then shot of Adam, because like we said, that's the problem of the first pshat, to say that they were then shot of Adam. The reason the Torah says chazak here, the Torah comes to teach you how much you have to be careful and be strong in mitzvahs. Shimon says, even though it's easy to be careful with dam, a person doesn't desire it. Nevertheless, the Torah had to tell you be strong in the keeping of the mitzvah. Kal v'chein l'shar mitzvahs. Oh, so it's telling us, taken, now they weren't short of bedam. Now they actually didn't want it. They were not misavi, didn't have any desire. But he tells you get something that you don't have a desire, and nevertheless, I'm telling you chazak. So the whole purpose is to teach you the God by other mitzvahs, not for here, it's for other mitzvahs. And therefore, Rasha adds, in the words of Shimon Nazar, not only it's a mitzvah hard, easy to be careful, and from there we make a kal v'chein for harder mitzvahs. Rasha adds that he said it's a mitzvah that a blood is an avera, something that a person doesn't even have a desire. Why does Rashi mention that? But he said that he adds that to the Sifri. The Sifri doesn't say that in the Shimon Nazar. So he says like this. Number one, why Rashi says it, Mikimish is a kali shomer menu. The fish ain't a misavel or the misavele. You see, in Sifri, the Shimon Nazar says dam is a mitzvah that's easy to be careful with. But Rashi feels he wants to give an explanation why. And the reason why it's easy to be careful because a person doesn't have a desire. But why does Rashi feel it's important to mention that? He wants to show that it's not stam, it's easy to be careful. You could say it's easy to be careful from not stealing $100. It's not the teva. The teva person wants to steal. You could say, I'm just using this as an example. It's something in the nature of a person that is something he doesn't have a taiva to. So since that is moving, so it makes sense here. According to Shimon Nazar, Bishas, he says they were not into dam. So he says, what makes sense? Why? Because naturally you're not into dam. The only way you're into dam is, as we said before, because in Mitzrayim, they believe in all kinds of things, and they believe in dam. But B'teva, a person will not. So it makes only sense that now that they're not in Mitzrayim, and they're 39 years away, probably they were not into dam. So Rashi wants to make it clear, so he quotes these words. And another thing, Beis, you should know, Rashi wants to tell us that it's because people don't have a taiva, not because a person is disgusted in drinking blood. Why? If you say that the reason is because nafshe kotza, so it's still, we said before, not a contradiction. It's not a stira. It could be that it's kotza, a person is disgusted with blood, and nevertheless, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you could be shot of b'dam. That's what he said before. It's not a stira. Mekomekim, but still, nevertheless, ostiyena hadeya shel Rabbi Yehuda v'Shimon Azariah v'chekazumazum. And it'll be pretty far apart. It won't be a contradiction because Rabbi Yehuda says they were shot of b'dam. It was takik, and he says, and if we say that Shimon Nazir holds that they were kotza, so it's still no contradiction. You could say Rabbi Yehuda also holds kotza, but they still shot of b'dam. But it's still pretty far. Disgusting and shotuv are two opposites. But Mele, Rashi says, I want to show how it's not two opposites because Shimon Nazir does not say kotze. Could be it's kotze, it's no stira, but it's not the reason why it's kadli shomer is not because of kotze. It's because not misave. Now, not misave and shotuv are not so far apart. Shotuv is this, and misave don't have a type to it. But kotze is a complete opposite. The Eid Yikir, another nekuda, even though it's possible something should be kotze, and nevertheless you should shotuv, it's not. It looks against what the fact is. Something a person has no type. The gamas hidden they say al zekamapom, and you warn him many times. For sure, it's easy to be careful with. So that's why Rasha adds Dover Shem Mesave to make it more the muchesh. That the Dover Shem Mesave, so therefore it's easy. So when the Shimon Nazir says that it's Dover Kali Shomer, he says why? Because Eilo de Mesave. So it's avada that it's easy to be. So that makes it even stronger what the Shimon Nazir was saying. So that's what Rasha adds. Okay. So now we have a second shot. But the first shot with kashas on the first shot, so we have a second shot, we don't have these kashas. What's wrong with the second shot? Rasha is not satisfied with this shot alone. She brings this a second, and we said before that the first shot is always the better one. So in the betterment of the shot, the first one is better. So obviously the second shot has worse kashas, stronger kashas than on the first. What is it? Nemar chazak abedam sof kosof. It says chazak by dam koshalei mishurag b'dei lamdach lischazak b'shar mitzvahs. According to Shimon Nazir, has nothing to do with blood. Blood is you don't need chazak. It's very easy to be careful. You don't need to be strong about it. other mitzvahs. It's telling you that if here, which you don't really have to be strong, nevertheless, you have to be strong, certainly other. So it's telling you something other mitzvahs. But the Torah writes it here by dam. It has to do with the Isadam. According to Shimon Nazai, where Rasha brings it, it doesn't have to do with dam. It's dam is just a springboard to teach you for other mitzvahs. From the Hemshech HaParsha is mashma that it has to do with dam. How? The Parsha Zubo Lahati, I said in the beginning, in this Parsha, the Torah comes to be Matir Boser Taiver. Boser Taiver means meat pusher to eat, not as a korban. Till now in Midbar they were not allowed to eat meat unless they brought a korban. So now the Torah is telling you that you're allowed to eat Boser Taiver. It says, if you're going to have a desire to eat meat, so whatever you want, you could eat Boser. And the Pasuk continues, you can eat in all your cities, which means you don't have to go up to Yerushalayim to bring a korban. You could eat the meat. And if right after that the Torah says, but be strong, not eat the blood, mashman is mashman simple pshat it's mashman that's yet taiva. He says you can have a taiva to eat meat, go ahead, but don't eat the blood. What was mashman? That be'etzem is had a taiva, you would want to eat meat, and you have a taiva to eat blood. The Torah is worrying, the meat I'm letting you eat, but the blood not, even though you might have a taiva. Here's mashman. Taiva makes it tamshi, taiva for whatever reason. So, and that's why the Buddha says that from here we see the Vishot of Adam. Makes sense, because the Torah says you'll have a taiva to eat meat, so you could do that taiva, but not the blood. Is mashma they had a taiva for blood too? So that fits to the Yehuda's pshat. That the person doesn't have a taiva to blood. But when it comes to teach you for other mitzvahs, had a signal as dam. So the way the Torah, the style, the way the Torah writes the isur of eating dam, the Torah says the loshen rak. When it says rak, means limreis hanemer leil. In spite of what I told you before, that you could eat the taiva of meat, nevertheless, I'm telling you chazak. By blood, be chazak. According to Shimon Nazai, it doesn't fit. The hemshech of the psukim don't fit. Maybe that's what Rasha brings Rabbi Yehuda first, which is not only first in place, it's first in madregi of pshat. There's a better pshat. It came Hashmos hemshech haksuvim because that's how the psukim look like they're going. The kasha on Rabbi Yehuda is the teichen. What is the kasha? Not a kasha the lotion of the pasuk. The kasha is, according to him, they were shot of Adam. But the question was, why would they be shot of Adam? So many years later, and why didn't he say anything before? But that kasha and the lotion of the pasuk. It's only the teichen sheyadayin shtufen b'dam is the fact that they were still to the canal. So therefore, which pshat is better to first? Because the second one is a problem with pasha the pasuk, and according to the first one, the problem is in teichen. So that comes first. But another, a Talmud Mamulach means a Talmud that's a talented Talmud. Because whatever is not moving for a simple Talmud, Rasha tells us. But sometimes something that a talented Talmud has a problem, that Rasha will answer it, but derech remes, just by something. So the kasha a person could ask, my time, why taka does he hold like this and he hold like this? He holds like this and against the other one. He holds like this against the first one. They both have problems. Why does the Yehuda feel that the problem of the Pshimon is on the Pshimon's pshat is a bigger problem, and the Shimon ben Azai holds that the problem on Yehuda pshat is a bigger problem? Maybe Rasha brings the name of the person who said it because everyone said it because it fits to his shita. What do we think? That Rabbi Yehuda Metzina, we find in the Rabbi Yehuda Mashakosa, there's a posek that says, actually in this week's parasha too, they say call nevela, don't eat nevela. Nevela is an animal that died, wasn't geschochten or got killed or whatever. What should you do with it? The Torah says, then to give it to a ger that lives in your town, let him eat it, or sell it to a goy. Now here a ger doesn't mean a real ger, because a ger is not allowed to eat nevela. It means a ger teishav. There's a get tzedek, is a regular ger, becomes a 100% full-fledged yid, and the get teishav is a goy, stays a goy, but he mekabel upon himself not to do avodah zarah, to keep the 7 mitzvahs. So the Torah says, to this ger you shall give the nevela, or sell it to the goy. So here's a machlekes in Gemara between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Shesvirle, Yehuda holds Dvorim Kiksovan. The Torah means what it says, as it's written. Like ger benesine, to a ger you can't sell it. If you give it to a ger, you got to give it to him. And a goy, you have to sell it to. You can't give it to a goy, but just sell it. You can't sell it to a gertesh, you just got to give it to him. Upalagar of Meir Domer, he argues against the Meir that says echad ger vechad nocher ben b'mechira ben b'nesine. The Meir holds no. The pasuk didn't mean bedafke. You could sell it or give it to a goy. You could to a gertesh, and you could sell it or give it to him. But what do we see Lepel here? That Rabbi Yehuda follows Dvorim Kiksovon. Rabbi Yehuda follows the way the pasuk is written. The same shit in our case. Here we have a choice of what the pasuk is talking about. Is the pasuk saying chazak to teach us something the way it's mashma from the pasuk we said before, from the hemshech of the psukim that it goes on dam, or can we say it's teaching us other mitzvahs? So which one is it? Which one would Rabbi Yehuda pick? So he says it. Pasuk, it goes on the way it seems from the pasuk. It's come and teach in dam itself. Shenema chazak gam gabedam. The why it says chazak by dam. Yes, you had to in dam. You had to have a chizuk. If you show you shtufim, there were shtufim in the dam. Now there's a deichek, as we said. He feels still that's better because he goes according to the psukim. The lochen and gam mayrich Rashi. Question mark. I'll explain what that means in a second. That's why Rashi is also mayrich in the loshen. We asked before, why does Rashi go kvetch? Because it says chazak. From that you learn now. Because he wants to tell you, because it says chazak here in the posik. Rashi is stressing, why does the Yehuda say that? Because since it says in posik here, the negei dam, that's why he says his pshat. That must be something to dam. Now, the Rebbe says here, Rashi, with a question mark. What in the world does that mean? Rashi says it. I mean, why does Rashi? But the question mark in Rashi in the Rebbe is like this. Is it something that Rashi himself says? Or is this because Rashi had a girsa in the Sifri like this? It could be either way. We don't know. So that's what he says. Could be Rashi is Mayrich in this for this reason. But I'm not sure. Maybe the Sifri is Mayrich for this reason. Or Rashi picks this lotion from Sifri, but could be the Sifri is Mayrich. So Rashi, and it's not clear. So the Rebbe says Rashi question mark. Could be it's Rashi, could be not. So we see by Negei Rabbi Yehuda that he darshans we darshan the lotion of the post. Shitas of Shimon Menazah Metzina, we find that of Shimon Menazah a different thing. Number one, we find that this Lazara kol lechazek b'kiyum hamitzvahs hafil kalas. We find by him he goes into the shita that we have to find a chizuk in the mitzvahs b'chlal. Even in light mitzvahs, you have to find a chizuk. You always have to be mechazik. Well, ka'omer, like he said in Pirkei Avos, have a rotz lemitzvah kala. Run. What's the running? Run means put on strength, energy to do the mitzvah. Schapiro, the pshat is gamim legasin kila chamora. See, there is a girs havrotz la mitzvah kala kila chamora. Now, some are not gators. Kigirs had morazot and Altreb is not gators. But whatever way, whether we're gators havrotz la mitzvah kala kichal chamora or without chamora, the fact is, he says you should run to a mitzvah kala. Now, what does he mean? You should run to a mitzvah kala and not run to a mitzvah chamora. So it doesn't rak le mitzvah kala. It doesn't mean run just to do a mitzvah kala. Elegam le mitzvah kala. You should run to do even the easy mitzvah. Okay, atam shemasayim. What's the reason? As he says, shem mitzvah gereres mitzvah. Because if you run to a mitzvah, even a mitzvah kala, you'll come to do more mitzvahs. So, well, there is all the opposite by avera. Emery says, run away from avera. Not just don't do the avera. Run away. That's chizuk. The gamal ze'atam. And the reason is avera gereres avera. Avera will bring an avera. And what avera bring another avera? So we see here like this, that his shita is that we always have to have chazak. And he says the reason for the chazak, because it will bring you to more mitzvahs. You see where we're getting to? According to Shimon Nazar, he says that the Torah writes chazak here by dam, not because of dam, because it will tell you negate other mitzvahs. We see that's what he holds. He says, be careful with a mitzvah kala, because it will bring you to more mitzvahs. So he sees how we extend when you look at a chizuk and a mitzvah, it's negated to other mitzvahs too. That's one thing. So, and here the Rebbe says it clearly. Base ki mitzvah kala maybe lekim shara mitzvah gamachamuras b'yesef. If you do a mitzvah kala, it could bring you to the best, strongest mitzvahs. Well, either gisa the opposite by avera. Avera, the light avera, could bring you to which avera. So we see here two things. First of all, you see, what I said before. I said it before we read it inside. So two things we see here. One is that Rav Shimon Azai says we have to be mechazik mitzvahs. That's his shita. He says, and he says one mitzvah could bring another mitzvah, and even could bring more chomer mitzvah. So the shitose gam can be said dam. That's why he says the same thing by dam. Number one, gam betzivu shekali shomen tzarich lias chazak be'asarosei. He says by dam, you don't. It's very easy to be careful. So why would the Torah mention chazak here? So he holds that even a mitzvah kala haverotz, even by easy mitzvah, which is easy to keep, you got to be mechazik. Shebe mitzvah sesehu, by mitzvah esse, it's masha'im erotz mitzvah gam kala. By mitzvah sese, he said positive mitzvahs. He said run to do be mechazik. Ubelei sese bechol aveira berech من aveira. Balei says same thing. Be mechazik yourself and go away from the aveira. So that's one thing you see here, and the second thing, that's the first part that we said by the Shimon Nazai, that he says run away from aveira. Be mechazik not to even aveira kala. And the second thing, what does he say? That the reason the Torah says it here, how much you have to be careful with chazak and mitzvahs. It says here in order to tell you other mitzvahs. Because it says here is a chizuk to all the mitzvahs. Just like he said, run to do a mitzvah kala. Why? Because it's going to help you other mitzvahs. But the kind of shar mitzvahs do other mitzvahs. Run away, be mechazik not to do the aveira. You'll be far from other averas. That fits to what he says here, that this is chazik by dam, but mainly it's to teach you that from this mitzvah will get other mitzvahs. Based on what we said, okay, so we know like this. You know, the shittas Rabbi Yehuda Gvorim Kiksovim. Rabbi Yehuda, his shit is b'chal. If you're able to dash in a posik according to the words of the posik, that's what comes first. Shittas of Shimon Nazai, we see to run even to a simple mitzvah, and to opposite meaning running away, escaping from the avera. That's what he says. So we see what each one holds. Where do we see that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold like Rabbi Shimon Nazai? See, we see what Rabbi Yehuda holds, but maybe the other thing is also good for him. Maybe he holds both. The fact that he holds that you dash in the psukim doesn't mean that he holds that you don't have to be mechazik simple averas, and that'll bring you to other mitzvahs. So he could have said the second pshat also. He says his pshat because he holds kiksav. But the second pshat is also, maybe he holds the second way also. So how do we know? How do you know he doesn't hold that? And if Shimon Nazar where do we see that Shimon Nazar doesn't hold that we dash in the psukim? And we're saying here he doesn't dash. Why? Because he wants to dash that it's the chizuk of every mitzvah. But he could have just as well dashed that. Maybe he holds also that if it's possible to follow the psukim, you should follow. So what the Rebbe is going to bring out here, that we find the Feidish Rabbi Yehuda does not hold like Rabbi Shimon Nazar. We don't go such a thing in the chizuk and the mitzvahs way Rabbi Shimon Nazar says. And Rabbi Shimon Nazar, the Feidish does not hold like Rabbi Yehuda that we go according to the psukim. Where do we see it? Habir. It's interesting. It's brilliant. It says the end of Brochas. Tanya, it says, Ben says, once I followed Rabbi Akiva into the bathroom. And I learned how to behave in the bathroom. 3 things, this and this and that I learned. Rabbi Yehuda says to Benazai, such chutzpah you had against your Rebbe. He told him, no, it's Torah not to learn. It's came to learn the law. So there's a machlekes here. Rabbi Yehuda says he shouldn't have done it, and Benazai, which is Rabbi Shimon Benazai, holds no, it's right to do it. Chura my plea, it wasn't a machlekes. Yes, Leib say like this. Rabbi Yehuda saw that Rabbi Yehuda holds it's Torah, and you have to learn the halachas. What do you do usually when you want to know halacha in Torah? All of lish la halacha, but besamet, go to ask the halacha. That's what he said to Shimon Nazar. This is the chutzpah you had instead of going to the Beis HaMedrash. So he holds that you shouldn't have gone that far. You should have asked the shayla like every shayla. Shimon Nazar holds that you have to do your best with the most strength to go even to an easy mitzvah. The same thing, you got to be mechazik yourself to find out the true halacha, because you got to do everything with strength, with chizuk. That's him. He holds like this: if it's possible, if it's possible, it's not enough just to ask the shayla to find out. You got to see ma'aser. Asher ma'aser Rab. The Gemara says in Shabbos, if you see a ma'aser from a chocham, that's the best rebbe. That's the best halacha. The Chazal say, it seems the opposite, but that ein la meim alocha. You can't learn that alocha. The Gemara says in Shabbos, leimi pi limud, not when you just learn. Leimi pi maise, not even if you hear maise. Let's skip the parentheses for 1 second. Unless your Rebbe tells you this is a halacha lemaise. Just seeing being done, you can't. But the Rebbe Bavorus in the parentheses, when do we say maise itself is not enough and you have to hear halacha lemaise? If the reason is important and you could seeing the maise, you never know what the reason behind it is. But in a case where there's nothing to think about, there's no difference. So then, let's the Rebbe says, Nora 35, but there is no place to make a mistake in the case. Maise dafkerav, faket is maise is better. So therefore, Shimon as I said, so the best case would be, the best way to learn it, the best way to have a chizuk in learning the halacha is if I will see the maise. That's why he went after Rabbi Akiva to see Posha the maise what he does, because he felt this is even better to do. And by the way, the Rebbe says, this answers the kasha the Masho asks. Yes, a kasha. He said, no, what was Posh Pshat in Gemara? He said, that's a chutzpah. He said, Torah, I have to learn. So Masho asks, what kind of Torah is that? Torah, you have to learn. Learn like every other Torah. Go learn it. Find out the halacha. And Hine Shometar, as the Masho answers, so he wanted to know, maybe there's certain things which I don't even know that we have to know how to do it. I have to ask a shaila. Certain things I don't even know what's a shaila. That's what he said. The Torah, I'm going to learn. The comment that when he said it's Torah and I have to learn, doesn't mean I have to learn what the halacha is. I have to learn. What do I have to learn? That's what he answered. But the Rebbe says, like, and doesn't understand how that answers the kasha. How they say, he could have asked this Rebbe, he should have asked, is there anything that I don't know what to learn? Would learn from him. He didn't have to have this chutzpah. So Akaponim, what the Rebbe said before, answers the kasha of the Masho. But the bottom line is, we have the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you shouldn't have done it, and he said no, I have to do it. Why? Because it's Torah, meaning I have to go and have to do it the best possible way, which fits to what Reb Shimon ben Azai holds. Have a rotz lemitzvah. You have to run to it. You have to do it. Abiru kanal. What's the pshat? Why you held like that? What's the machlekes? Shitosei v'darkesh Reb Shimon ben Azai. His shita is last is called dover binyam b'teimitz beikin shalvitza v'yischaskas tisera. Everything you run, you do with chizuk. There's nothing better than seeing the actual hanhogi of the Rav. So he wasn't satisfied just asking his Rebbe. He went in to learn the best way possible, because you have to do it in the best way. He says, obviously, Buddha holds you have to be careful with mitzvahs, but it's not that you have to be such a chizuk even to do a chutzpah. But even though it's Torah and you want to know, to see exactly how to do it, he says it would be enough. If you ask your Rebbe, are there any special halachas I have to know? It would be enough. So what Menazai did, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's a chutzpah. But according to Raza himself, not a chutzpah. That's why he said to him, he asked it's a chutzpah. He says, no, I have to say that. And he felt it's not a chutzpah. But Rabbi Yehuda said it's a chutzpah. Why? Because you don't have to do it. As much as you have to have ritza and chizuk, but not so far. So here we see how Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the Venazai. He does not hold that the Torah goes through such a way to make the ritza so much. Now we have to find, where do we see that Benazai doesn't hold the Rabbi Yehuda, that we go by the psukim. There is a Matzina Lider Gise, we find the other way also. Benazai says like this. Nemer machshefo l'sechaya. Torah says a machshefo, a magician, which means a woman, but it means a magician. L'sechaya cannot live. The Nemer that says koshech v'mheima meisumas, that if you have relations with the behemoth, you should die. The Torah doesn't say what misa you give. The Torah puts the two together to tell you, just like the Torah, if you're with a behemoth, it says clear in the Torah, you get skila, get stoned, so to kill a magician is with skila. You want to kill a guy because they're written next to each other? No, that's not where we know it from. You know from something else. Torah speaks about magicians. One of the magicians are Eiven Yedeni, different types of magic. When the Torah speaks about general kishiv, they're included. Lama Yotza, why did the Torah take them out and write them separately also? To compare and tell you, Ma Eiven Yedeni Biskila, Machshefa Biskila, to tell you, just like Eiven Yedeni, which is part of Machashva, gets stoned, so they also get stoned. So here we have a machlekes from where we learn it. Shimon Nazai says we learn it from Smichus because the Torah puts it together, and the Yehuda learns it from the way the Torah writes what it says in the Torah. You could say the reasons like this. But he says, we darshan with Torah puts two things together, we make a drash. Somchu inyan haparsha b'chlolusa. What smichas means not in a word. Smicha is the Torah takes a subject and puts one subject next to the other, b'chlolus. So the Torah wants you to learn it from it. The Torah, you take the inyan, the fact that the Torah took b'chlolus, this type of person next to this type of person to teach you that they get the same misa. But the Buddha wonders and says because they're close, given skila. He learns the din. He learns it because the Torah writes something extra. The Torah writes Eva Yedeni. Now Eva Yedeni did not have to be written because it says Machshefa, so we know every Machshefa. So the Torah writes something clearly. Mikra mafurish, it's a clear posik to teach you a certain din. So what do we see here? The Shimon Nazai does not learn like Rabbi Yehuda. So he doesn't care that according to Yehuda, the Maila is who Poshet learning from a posik. The Torah writes something to teach us a din. The Rabbi Shimon Nazai says, I don't care. Mir is good. That doesn't mean much. Mir is, I go with Klolas. The Torah b'Chlolas writes this parsha, next this parsha. It's not what the Torah writes. So here we see clearly how Rabbi Shimon Nazai does not agree that we have to follow the wording of the Torah the way it says. So here we are both. So we see that the Buddha does not hold the fact that the Ritze, the mitzvah, the chazak goes so strong. That's why he doesn't learn here either like that. He learns here, goes teaches you something else. Teaches you that shtufim bedam. And Shimon Nazar does not hold of that you have to follow the lashon of the pasuk. That's why he holds the other thing that you have to go because of the chazak of the other mitzvahs. We're going to go a little, try to finish it. The Yenesh Torah of Rashi is like this. What's the reason why we can't eat blood? The Torah says because blood is the nefesh. And what does that mean? So what's wrong if you eat the nefesh? So it's nefesh. The say said the Ramban and the Chinuch and the Akedah and the Rechaim, they all talk about it. The Af Shagam Bebosar B'Hapeiman in Tzas nefesh. Chure shouldn't be able to eat meat. Meat is also alive. The Behema was alive. It had a nefesh. There's a difference. The meat, in the meat is life. Blood, in the blood is not life. The blood itself is life. And now, actually, 42 star, the Rebbe says that in the meat, you could say, why is there life in the meat? Because there is blood in the meat. The blood is the nefesh. And the meat contains the nefesh. But the meat is not really the nefesh. While the blood is the nefesh itself. In Horah 43 star, he says, called nefesh, meshav, nefesh, korov, nefesh, meshav, nefesh. Anyway, so blood is called nefesh. So therefore, only blood you can't eat, and meat you could. Why? Because they name it cold of chura, even if meat is not nefesh itself, but still. And what's wrong with eating nefesh? So he says like this: whatever you eat becomes part of your flesh, becomes part of you. You are what you eat. And therefore, you will get the nature of the food that you eat. That's the reason. Whatever you eat, you will get the nature, the teva, the midas of what you eat. If you eat meat, so even though it has nefesh in it, but number one, it doesn't have the strong nefesh of the behema. Like we said before, only nefesh is in the meat, and nefesh of a behema contains the midas of the behema. The nefesh is the life. So just like by a person, the midas of the person is his nefesh. The midas of the behema is the nefesh. But the meat is not really the nefesh. So meat does not really have the teva of the behema. And also, you have to chew the meat and it has to digest, and it changes. Till it becomes part of the person, his flesh and blood, it's not the same meat. The teva has to change and change till it becomes food that gives you that feeds you. It goes through a whole process. So the closeness of the teva of the behemah will not come into you because it's far. Blood which you drink doesn't have to be digested like that. And it is nefesh. By eating blood, which is the nefesh of the behemah, yischaber nefesh v'teva behemah b'nefesh odom. So the teva of the behemah and the nefesh of the behemah will become in the person, will be nischaber connected to the person, but yisaber nefesh of behemah, he will become fargrept with it like the nefesh of the behemah. So the mele which understand she'ela shtufim b'dam, those that are involved in blood, they have the midas of the nefesh bahamis shalom keteva nefesh behemah. Obviously, these are people that their nefesh bahamis is like a behemah, has the midas of a behemah. He says in order 46 star, and this also pales by the midas of nefesh lekis. So they are basically people that still have the teva of a behemah. So when we talk about not eating blood to such people who are involved, meaning we're telling people you're eating blood, you're short of in blood, and b'meile you have a teva of your midas behemoths. Stop eating it. It means fight your teva of midas of the nefesh bahamis of the behemoth. And those are the two pirushim. First, he talks about the first shot that the people were shot of Adam. You have to tell them be strong because they were shot. What does that mean in Ruchnius? What he's really saying, you have to fight strong against eating blood. Blood makes your teva nefesh bahamis. You meet this like a behemah. You got to fight that. So we're talking about people who are still in the madrege that have the midas of the nefesh bahamis like a behemah, and you got to fight it. And how do you fight it? Peter is Rabbi Yehuda. It's all apechsidus. Rabbi Yehuda said it. What's Rabbi Yehuda's madrege? Yehuda melosh napam meidis Hashem. How did he call? Leah called him Yehuda. So it says she called him Yehuda because it came from the word hapam. Now I will thank Hashem. So we can say heidoa bittel. Not only thanking, heidoa means giving in, being mevatel to David. Yehuda, which talks about bittel, because when do you need that? How to fight the midas of the nefesh bahamis, which is the aveda viskafia, you have to bend it. You have to do it through bittel. So hainu sheyesh le'shaychus lemidas tivim nefesh bahamis. We're talking about a person as a shaychus to the midas tivim nefesh bahamis. So you have to change it. That's what the Buddha talks about, because the Buddha, that's what he represents. And he says, yeah, shtufim bedam, and you got to fight that. You got to get away from that, because chazak for that. Shimon Azai, David Doseb, Shimon Azai, his rotz dafke, Aveda was rotzei dafke. We said before, Bechlal run to a mitzvah, but besides that, we know Shekol Chefse Magmose Lalis Lamailo. He wanted to go up Lamailo. He's one of the four that went into the Pardes. He went into the he went to Aliyah, he had a rotzei to go in. So his Madrege was nothing to do with Nefesh Bahamis. Okay, he was going higher and higher in the Duchnias. Ukmekem basic Atera Shalei, Nafshe Choshka B'Teira. He wanted so much to learn Torah, he didn't even get married. Because Nafshe Choshka he wanted to learn. That's why he said everything he did in mitzvahs, Torah mitzvah was with a chizuk, because that's what his whole madrege. So l'daitei, according to him, which means in his level, Leib it doesn't come to tell you stay away from dam because you're drinking dam, you shut up a dam because it means you're nefesh bahamis. He's not talking about people like that. He's not in that madrege of talking about maybe it's nefesh bahamis. But what is it? Comes to teach you how much you have to be mischazik b'mitzvahs. Hainu. The Pasuk is not telling you those that have midas TV and bad midas naturally, the nature of the midas is bad and you have to change it. To warn you to become stronger in mitzvahs in the positive way. And also lahasircha means to warn you, but lahasircha also comes from the lotion of zohar, which is shine. In order 52 he brings that in Tanya Geras HaKedesh it says one Tanya asked the other, your father with which mitzvah was he more careful? So careful every mitzvah. Didn't mean that. Which mitzvah shined by him? So here also, the Nazir says we got to make the mitzvah. The Torah is telling you to make the mitzvah shine. The Torah is not telling you about finding nafsh bahamis. Telling you you have to go higher and higher in mitzvah. You have to get shining in the mitzvahs. And how does he learn it out? Like this. If by something it's easy to be careful. and a person doesn't have a taiva. Nevertheless, the Torah says you have to be mechazik be'as harosei. What does it mean? It means if we're talking by something that you don't have any taiva to it, and you think because that's his madrega, he has nothing to do with the midas and neshram. So he's saying that's what the Torah is telling you. Like even by dam is something you could stay away, because we're not talking about people who care about the dam and they drink dam and it changes their midas. So even by something which, that's what he says, according to Shita, we're not talking about changing your midas. Something that you don't have to change your midas. You have no connection to the midas. Nevertheless, it tells you have to be mechazik in the hazhara, which means in the shining of it. You have to strengthen more by the hazhara. You have to have more eliki, even in an easy small thing. Even though you're higher than having a problem with your teva medesa, you have to go even higher. The Torah says even by such things which you don't have a shaykhs to, so you don't have a teva medesa. Nevertheless, you have to go. The Torah, you have to go higher and higher. And certain by other things which a person has a taiva. Certainly you have to strengthen yourself to stay away from it. And to shine your nefesh in the That's the Chassidish pshat of he says that it goes on Shtufim Bedam, and Shim Benazai says it goes on the ones that are higher madrega. It fits mamish, all the proteins fit mamish here so well, every word of Rashi and the whole Chassidish even. Yeah. Okay. Every time we learn, you get a new chayas in learning.
Yeah, Schapiro. Thank you.